We spend a lot of time as leaders talking about our employees, perhaps in a sort of in a gut feel kind of a way. And I find that when we put a number to their values alignment and then to their performance and plot them on a chart like this, we really start to get, specific and can take action. I believe this helps us take action on our employees.
Well, as you know, and as everyone on this call knows, I'm in recruiting. So it wouldn't be right to talk about culture without talking about, how this impacts hiring or evaluating your team. So curious to hear kind of your approach there. How would someone go about one, looking at your current team and determining kind of how to, evaluate who's living up to these values?
Yeah, well, yes, thank you for exactly. So this is sort of part one of a two-part process that I encourage all leaders to do with their existing team, and you can see some fake employee names on the left there, but also have candidate one and candidate two, and also a customer, best customer, worst customer. It's great to look at the alignment of our stakeholders, be they employees, potential employees, customers, vendors, and give them a score using that key on the right for how well they align with our values. When we do this with employees and give them feedback, and when we give feedback, we should always, Brian, relate it to a real story that we witnessed. So, hey, Fred, can I just talk to you about our value of, go the extra mile? When you quit the office early yesterday and left the team hanging, that didn't fully do our value. And so it helps them see what good looks like, and then give them real feedback around their alignment with your values. So this works very effectively, and one fun exercise is to do it for your best and worst customer. And I guarantee that if people do this and look at their customers versus their values, they will find that their best customer is 100% in line with those values, and their worst customer is not. This works every time, Brian, and it can be really, illustrative for leaders. And what they'll
Yeah,
find is that their
that's
best customer, of
fascinating.
course, is where their team is likes working with them. There's a good energy there, and we're making money. The worst customer, probably the opposite is true. And sometimes if we look at that, and those customers are also, not making us money, and we unhire those customers, the team will just thank us, and we just spend more time with our energy and resources serving fewer clients better, and let that worst customer go and be a pain to our competitor. And
Yeah,
so it's a great thing. We often assess customers, based on their revenue spend or their projects or future earnings. But it's look at your customers in terms of how they align with your values, and go seek customers that align better with your values, and you will have a much healthier business, sleep better at night, and your team will thank you for it.
that's great. That's so interesting. That's really truly as an organization embodying your core values, right? If your business partners, your
Yeah,
customers align, I mean that's taken it a whole step further. And certainly I've seen that. I mean, one of the
yeah,
things that I strive for with Lion's Eye, and it's one of our core values, is communication and transparency. And clients that aren't communicating well, as a recruiter, if you're trying to push people through a hiring process or just get feedback, I mean, those are huge headaches, tough clients. So that definitely resonates with me personally.
yes. And you asked about recruiting, so you can see we've got candidate one and candidate two on here. It's really helpful if you can also so to the point of recruiting for cultural alignment is, of course, to have some behavioral based questions that are trying to determine what the values are of that candidate. And if we use real stories from the folklore of our company to inform those behavioral based questions, then we have one good answer because we know what one of our great culture employees did. And then it's really great if we have two or three people each give a ranking to how we think this candidate aligns with our values. We are going to be much more successful if we have, and as you know, recruiting is not 100% sure business, but we're going to be much more successful if we are really looking to the values of that candidate before we bring them on to work with the rest of the team.
See, and the great part about that, Will, is it's twofold, because by asking those questions that reference, specific examples, specific stories, you're almost selling, you are selling your company culture to that candidate, which is equally important. You're selling this story of how your team behaves, and this is what we strive for. It's the behavior we strive for. That's selling, that's building your cultural brand to these candidates that often are very, very in demand and roles that are extremely competitive.
Yeah, and so to that point too, I believe if we're competing, and I've seen this play out recently, where a candidate is being pursued by more than one potential employer, and I believe one way that we can have a different conversation that's not just about salary and competing on price, if you like, is to, of course, talk about vision and purpose. And that would take us back to that core data and that core target that I talked about on that earlier poster, where we're talking about the goodness that we're doing for the world. And that can absolutely change the conversation and touch the heart of that individual. And if they're willing to join you, even at a lower price point, because they like your values and they feel your culture, and they see that there's a purpose to that business that's doing good things for the world, then I believe that's a great conversation to have and a great way to recruit and compete for that great candidate.
100%. I mean, I've seen that many, many times. People taking less money because they felt better about an organization, and it aligned with their purpose and what they feel good doing.
Yeah. So the way this is part one. We determine a score here for how. Let's use the example of an employee here, of what score they have, and then we plot that on that vertical axis there for values alignment, Brian. And on the horizontal axis there, we plot where their performance is. And we spend a lot of time as leaders talking about our employees, perhaps in a sort of in a gut feel kind of a way. And I find that when we put a number to their values alignment and then to their performance and plot them on a chart like this, we really start to get specific and can take action. I believe this helps us take action on our employees. So let's say you've got somebody that's in that bottom left corner, low values, low performance. Sounds kind of obvious. Maybe we need to unhire that person. But what happens very often is we might have somebody in the bottom right box where their performance is good. If, let's say, they're a salesperson that's bringing in the dough, bringing in the revenue, but they're a low alignment with our values, and the rest of the company does not appreciate working with that individual, and that can be a real draw on our culture. And we're probably talking about, if there's a certain name that comes up a lot in our management meetings, then it's probably we should plot the individual here, and maybe that would tell us, help us make a decision more quickly than perhaps we otherwise would. But what's great about this is we can start to move, based on those scatter plots, move from that sort of middle ground up into that top right quadrant, where we can really have a team that is not only high performing, but is a high values alignment, and therefore like working with each other. Now, I would like to make the point, of course, that when we talk about values being in alignment, you can still represent all the diversity that exists on the planet, but still have the same values in common. And that's what we're looking for here. because of course the maximum diversity we know also powers maximum performance in business.
Yeah.
So anyway,
great.
really cool tool. We call it the core score. It's two parts to it, but basically it helps us make decisions around, and it sort of brings clarity to to how we should lead various individuals in the company.